Good morning, City of Port Aransas. We're here today for Hobby Day here at the Port Aransas Community Theatre, and I have a special guest today who would like to introduce himself.
Hello there, my name is Ray Dillahunty, and I moved to Port Aransas about 4 years ago. About 2 years ago, as many of us that retire down here in Port Aransas get involved in, I saw a volunteer opportunity come across the newspaper that says, we'd like some help building a setup at the theater. And so I showed up, and unfortunately I've never been able to escape. So here for 2 years I've been building the sets for the community theater. So this is a little bit of a hobby day and a little bit of a volunteer day. If you're interested in volunteering, we can always use some help, and let Parks and Recs know, and we can go from there. Well, the play that the theater is planning on doing toward the end of this year, September, October timeframe, is Little Shop of Horrors, and it's going to be a pretty big production compared to many of the plays that they do here. It's one of the better known plays in the industry, and it's really fun, and I'm looking really forward to it, and we've got a lot of people excited about it. The set of the play, in case you're not aware, is set in a flower shop in New York, Skid Row, and so what's behind me here is going to be the flower shop, and that's what the audience will see most of as the play goes on. And the flower shop has a door, which you see here, and this will be opened up, be able to open up, and we'll cut this out and put glass in it so that it looks like the front of a flower shop door. The play is on Skid Row, and so much of the play happens in a Skid Row environment here. And this is just a little wall with a couple of bums that are laying on the ground amongst a whole bunch of trash bags and paper trash and that kind of stuff that just kind of set the scene of the environment where this play is taking place in a relatively low-end district in New York. So it's going to be pretty nice and pretty interesting to put the set together. It's a very creative process. It's a lot of thinking out of the box, because you have a lot of issues to deal with about how to get things on and off the set without the audience seeing those. And it's all about what the audience sees, so that's kind of what we're working toward. What we try to do is build sets in modular pieces, generally 4x8 sheets or 4x8 pieces that we can put together. That includes doors like you've seen behind me, and we've got to build a bay window for Little Shop of Horrors. So here's our frame for our bay window, and we'll take some window pieces that we've used before. This is from one of our previous sets, and it will end up being put here like this, so that this is one piece of the bay window. And then as we get further along on the bay window and put the next piece on it, then this will come in and go here, so that we have a bay window that we can deal with. And when we get this thing completely constructed, then we will take the bay window and put it in place in the set. So when we get the bay window assembled, we'll take the actual bay window and move it around to where it belongs in the set, this way. And we'll take it and just connect it to the other wall pieces in a fashion similar to this with screws. In place, when we've got this wall, this bay window section in piece, then we'll simply screw it to the other sections of the set. And we've got now a second wall section that includes the bay window, which looks out from the inside of the shop to the street, which is kind of behind me. And there'll be people that look in the bay window at the plant, which is sitting on the bay window piece here. So we build these sections of walls. Some of them move. Obviously, there's doors that open so that you can come in the front door of the shop. And we build the entire set that way. So it's a little bit creative, and it's, again, all of this will get painted the same color. It'll be really nice looking, and we'll have our set for Little Shop of Horrors before the end of the month, or the end of next month at least, is over. So the main character in this production is Audrey 2, which is a extraterrestrial plant that Seymour finds at a little sidewalk flower shop and brings it to this flower shop to grow. And it's the first. There are actually 4 plants or 4 puppets associated with the show, and I'm going to talk about a couple of them. The first one is relatively small, and it's just the very juvenile plant. It's actually about this size, maybe a little bit bigger, and that's what Seymour first brings home. And then as it gets fed, which is an interesting story, you'll have to come and see the play, as it gets fed, it grows. And so we've got a couple of different size eggs that are kind of our idea of what the plant would look like. And this would be a plant which its mouth opens and closes, and it would be operated by a hand puppet. And this is one of the molds that we've taken by taking an egg and filling it with an expanding foam. We'll then cut it and see whether we can create a viable plant out of this. One of the things that I really like about volunteering at the theater and being in charge of the set creation here is that you get to be creative, and it requires you to think out of the box. You're not going to do anything that's normal. I've been to the hardware store or the auto parts store and asked for something, and the guy says, well, what does it go on? Does it go on a 57 Chevy? And I go, no, it's not going to be used for anything that it was intentionally initially built for. I'm using it for something completely different. So when we get to building things like the plants that are puppets that we've got to manipulate with our hands, we start getting creative with finding objects that we can use as kind of a base for those. And if we take this and spray some expanding foam around it, then we'll end up with a body of or the head of a plant that we might be able to use and shape with a electric kitchen knife to the shape of something that's actually more like this when we're finished. And we can then use this as the plant that we're dealing with. So as you can see, as I open this up, I took a egg that's here, used it as a mold on the inside of the plant, put stuff around it, the gray stuff, the expanding foam around it, and we end up with a plant that is now potentially a puppet that we can put our hand in, and it will actually be able to talk and eat and move its face and do things that are associated with being loving to Seymour, because Seymour is who feeds him. And so this is some of the creative things that we get to do. And from this plant, it continues to grow and gets even larger. There's actually 2 larger puppets in this, and I'm only going to talk about the next one for a few minutes. So we can actually bend the PVC and mold a frame, a template, a skeleton of the larger plant. So we'll take and do this kind of thing and mold with the PVC so that it bends the way we want it to bend it, with the jaw that rolls here, goes around the front to a front with where the teeth are, and eventually. So if we're careful and take our time, and there's usually 2 people involved in doing this, at least 2, we can mold this around our template, around our jig that we've got, so that we've got a piece of a jaw that looks like this and would come around to the front. So what we end up with after bending all of our pipe is a framework that we can use for the number 3 puppet, the head of the number 3 puppet, that will actually open up, and a puppeteer can operate the puppet by being inside the puppet and make the jaw move up and down and talk and sing. And so that's the idea of the number 2 puppet. This will all be painted. This will all have really nice artwork on it. It'll be covered all the way around. That's the challenge that we're dealing with now, is how to cover it, what to cover it with, and still make it light enough that you can have an actor that spends 20-25 minutes in this puppet as part of the scene in Little Shop of Horrors. So the scene opens with him kind of straight up, but this puppet gives the operator the ability to move and open and close the jaw fairly consistently, and also gives him the ability to move from side to side. I'll probably be in a swivel chair. I can also stand up and be a bigger puppet. And Seymour, feed me. So that gives you an idea of the volunteer work that I do, one of the jobs here in Port Aransas that I volunteer for. And I'm having quite a good time, and it's a really great way to meet a number of people down here in the community. I've got a regular crew that comes over here and volunteers, sometimes 1, 2 of them, sometimes 4 or 5 or 6 of them. The biggest was when we had a great big window wall that was 22 foot long and 12 feet tall for the play, and then there were none. And we had 18 volunteers over here that raised the window wall off of the stage floor up into the air, and we secured it up into the rafters at the top of the theater. So it's really quite a great place to volunteer, and I'm really enjoying it. And I hope you've enjoyed this little piece of what goes on in the back of a community theater before the play ever opens. And again, come see Little Shop of Horrors this fall. Hopefully the September-October timeframe we'll be able to start productions again. Again, Ray Dillahunty with Port Aransas Community Theatre. And we want to thank you for watching this video produced by the Port Aransas Parks and Recs Department.